Tonight on The Wrap, a new era begins on yet another day of comings and goings in Downing Street. Andy Burnham is Britain's new Prime Minister, the 7th in just 10 years. He promised the biggest changes in 40 years to win over voters fed up with politics.
I will put the care of people at the heart of everything I do. I will give this my all.
And he started by sacking no fewer than 10 cabinet ministers. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, is out. So too, David Lammy. And in a major plot twist, the former Defence Secretary, John Healey, gets her job. We'll look at what that means for the new government and the country. A smile and a hug from Ed Miliband, who is named as Foreign Secretary, and Shabana Mahmood, who stays as Home Secretary. But what about Wes Streeting? We're still waiting to find out. Well, we discussed the day's biggest stories. Well, this story, let's be honest, with the former First Minister of Northern Ireland, Baroness Arlene Foster, and the Daily Mirror's Kevin Maguire, plus a first look of the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers reacting to today's news, including The Guardian, which says Andy Burnham promises to bring back hope. Well, hello and a very good evening to you. Kevin, Arlene, welcome as well. So Andy Burnham is the latest in a long line of Prime Ministers in the past decade, but he was still able to surprise us, naming John Healey as Chancellor. Ed Miliband and Shabana Mahmood arrived together and both have big jobs, Foreign Secretary and Home Secretary, respectively. But former Chancellor Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer's deputy, David Lammy, are both out and will sit on the backbenches. So, Arlene, Kevin, more news still to come, obviously, tonight, more appointments. What do you make of it so far, Arlene?
Well, it certainly has been. It's not a reshuffle because it's a new government, but he certainly has made his mark by getting rid of so many of Keir Starmer's loyalists. I mean, I don't think, well, certainly I didn't expect the sort of purge that we've seen today. But I think he's very much still on this vibe thing about bringing back hope. And it sort of reminded me of 1997 and things can only get better and all of that sort of thing. But let's see the plan. I'm looking forward to the plan. And I think the country's looking forward to the plan too.
And it is breathtaking, the scale of the changes. It rather feels like the change you would get after a party has won a general election again, rather than a very British coup through the parliamentary system. Is an incredible purge of the Starmerites after he said he wouldn't be factional on the street outside Number 10. But will it work? Well, we'll discover whether he's got better subs than Thomas Tuchel had for England against Argentina in a few weeks or months.
France, great game. Anyway, apart from that...
It didn't matter.
It didn't matter. I loved it. Anyway, so a day of shocks, drama, lots of comings and goings. Let's get more detail here first tonight from our political editor, Beth Rigby, who spent the day in Downing Street.
Downing Street packed for a spectacle that has become all too familiar. The country waiting for its fifth Prime Minister in 4 years. Occasions once punctuated by elections rather than coups. Starmer's ousting in the end bloodless, but not without pain for his closest allies and aides lining the street for the final farewell. The outgoing PM forced out of office not by voters, but his party taking the stage for one last time.
Thank you.
After 2 years in Downing Street, Starmer clear he wants history to remember what he built, not the coup that brought him down.
My work is done. In 6.5 years, I took our party from a historic defeat in 2019, changed it so it was fit to face the country, and won a landslide general election victory in 2024. I am confident that Britain is now stronger and fairer than it was 2 years ago.
And even in defeat, Starmer determined to go with dignity.
So, as I now pass the baton to Andy Burnham, I wish him every success. He has my full support. I go with good grace, I go with a smile and I go proud of everything that we have achieved. Thank you very much.
Embracing his wife, Victoria, who helped him make the final decision to stand down, applauded all the way to the gates, then on to Buckingham Palace to hand in his official resignation to the King. One premiership over and another just beginning. Burnham next to Buckingham Palace to ask permission to form a new Labour government. The new Prime Minister and his wife, Marie-France, arriving to rapturous crowds. The joy on Burnham's face plain to see.
Thank you.
This moment over a decade in the making, and he took it all in. A new Prime Minister and a new style, no lectern, no notes.
I know people at home are fed up with politics. I hear you, and I want to be honest with you. We have not been good enough, and we need to be better. We will be.
But like Starmer before him, Burnham promised a decade of change.
Later this year, I will bring forward a new plan for Britain, a 10-year plan, laying out a path from where we are now to where I believe we all want Britain to be, wherever we're coming from, whatever party we support.
And immediate support on the cost of living.
But I can do something to give people some breathing space now, some help with the cost of living. And I will set out some of those measures starting tomorrow, including how we pay for them.
This his pitch to the British people he now needs to win around.
I will give this my all, and I ask you all to pull with me. Let us make this the moment when Britain starts to believe again, the moment we bring back hope. Thank you very much, everybody.
Hugging his wife and his aides, but the longest embrace saved for his mother, Eileen, who has seen her son try and fail to become Labour leader twice to finally realise his dream and enter number 10. Before coming to Downing Street, Burnham took a dawn visit to a homelessness charity in Victoria, here to outline his first order as PM to end rough sleeping in the UK. Big ambitions, but this, a leader without a mandate. You said on Friday in your speech as you accepted the Labour leadership that you want to deliver the biggest change in our politics in 40 years. It sounds like a massive ambition for which you do need a mandate beyond the 25,000 people who voted for you in the Makerfield by-election. When are you going to call a general election?
Well, we're in a parliamentary democracy, and as we've seen through time, if somebody can command the majority of the MPs in the House of Commons, obviously they then have the legitimacy to lead things forward. And I will lead forward consistent with the manifesto, which also talked about change. And I now want to work on the platform.
But you are going to stick to the manifesto, just to be clear. You are not going to go beyond the manifesto of 2024.
I will stick to the manifesto. I will be bold and I will be true to what it says. But there are big changes that I can implement coming from that manifesto. It is about a new political model. Okay. It is about a new economic model for the country.
A new economic model and a new team to execute it. John Healey made Chancellor, having quit Keir Starmer's government after a battle over defence spending. Meanwhile, the duo who had been mooted for that role ended up in other big offices of state. Shabana Mahmood remaining as Home Secretary and Ed Miliband going to the Foreign Office. Burnham also bringing in his key allies. Campaign Chief Louise Haigh back in Cabinet as First Secretary of State in charge of the Cabinet Office. New MP and close ally Annalise Midgley elevated to Cabinet. This is a huge moment. We have a new Prime Minister, but without an election or even a leadership race, he is a man that some of you perhaps don't know. He's been ushered into the biggest job in the country by a Labour Party that believes it has a better chance of winning the next election with Burnham at the helm. And you can see from his first steps in his first speech that he wants to be a different kind of leader. But if he also wants to stick to Starmer's manifesto and mandate, can Burnham really be the change he says he is? He enters Downing Street promising to deliver the biggest change in how this country is governed in 40 years, with a 10-year plan for reform. But with voters out of patience and low on trust, he'll have to deliver much sooner than that. Beth Rigby, Sky News, Westminster.
We'll get more from Kevin and Arlene shortly, but Beth Rigby is here. You've had an early start. It was you there with him at that homelessness charity. You know, the first thing he's talked about really is trying to end rough sleeping. Your takeaways from today, what's your overall impression?
Well, it's funny because we've just sort of played the story of the day there, but the story is still going on. There are still over 10 MPs, some who have been cabinet ministers, some who are ministers, in number 10 tonight, as Andy Burnham firms up his cabinet. But I think in terms of the main takeaways, this is a...
Oh, Beth, Lisa Nandy's staying on as Culture Secretary while you talk, but that was one of the names waiting to hear. We'll hear more, no doubt. Do continue.
Well, Lisa Nandy is obviously a close ally of his, and there are other allies of his that have been put into Cabinet, back into Cabinet. The most notable, really, Louise Haigh. She's the First Secretary of State. She's the Cabinet Office Minister, and she will be the woman in government. She drove his campaign for Makerfield. She drove his planning to get back into Westminster and win that leadership. It wasn't a race in the end. It was a bloodless coup. And now she's going to be at the heart of his government. Annalise Midgley as well, a new MP. She was a trade unionist, a great organiser, very popular in the party. She is his chief whip. Lucy Powell, the Deputy Labour leader, is back in as Education Secretary. Angela Rayner is in housing. That is where she wanted to go. She got that brief. So, look, there's a lot of new blood into the Cabinet, which are the Andy Burnham camp. But there is continuity too. He's kept a lot of Cabinet ministers in position. He might have shuffled the pack a bit, but he's not completely doing away with the Starmer regime. But I think my takeaway from today really is, in terms of the style of Andy Burnham and the way he has approached this first day as being Prime Minister, he is trying to show he's a different kind of leader.
Can I ask you about John Healey? You know, the word on the street was Shabana Mahmood had got it because of a campaign to make sure that Ed Miliband did not. Was that just a wrong steer, or has something changed, do you think?
Well, it was interesting, Anna, because last week... all of the talk at some of the summer parties early in the week was that Shabana Mahmood had edged it past Ed Miliband to get the chancellorship. These stories were hedged, but it was written up in the FT and the Times. And I can tell you, I worked at the FT for 20 years, and you don't put a story in the FT unless you are really confident that it's correct. So I think there was a point last week where certainly there was an expectation it was going to be Shabana Mahmood, and when I came back, I was kind of out of circulation for a few days, so I went to Ukraine with the PM. You have to give in your phones, so you kind of go into a bit of a black zone. It's actually lovely. I would thoroughly recommend it. I'm like, give up my phone every Saturday, I think. And when I came back and I checked the news, I was like, oh, it's nailed on, it, Shabana Mahmood. Like, there's not any doubt. When I was getting ready for today and checking it out myself, I was told very clearly by someone that I believe was not trying to spin but would know that it was between Shabana Mahmood and Ed Miliband. To quote this person, there is no other candidate. So I can tell you, when John Healey walked up the street as the first person, amid rumours and things I picked up from sources suggesting that Rachel Reeves had turned down being Defence Secretary, it was bamboozling, because the first person up the street is normally the Chancellor. And then I thought, well, is he going to come back as Defence Secretary? But it was John Healey. What could have gone on? I'm sure that there will be many column inches dedicated to it.
Should we see if we can listen to some clues? Because here is John Healey speaking, the new Chancellor.
Quite simply, tonight it's just great to be back in the Treasury after nearly 20 years, and just a huge honour to be here as Chancellor. I want to first thank my predecessor, our previous Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, for all the service she's given this country. She brought financial discipline, she enabled growth, and she will always be remembered as the first woman Chancellor in 700 years. For me, the Prime Minister and I have talked about how we will work in lockstep to meet the fiscal rules with a buffer against uncertainty, and how we'll make life more affordable for working people right across the UK. And I join you, just having come off a call with the Governor of the Bank of England, and I've conveyed this also to him.
Interesting, yes. Going to work in lockstep. Kevin?
We'll have to wait for his memoirs to find out whether he was tapped up today or whether it was weeks ago, because he's not going to say now if it, was... Because he won't want to contradict other people.
No, but
I'd like to know the truth.
Between the lines, I would like to know the truth as well, but between the lines, I think it was so unpleasant, the briefings and the counter-briefings between Camp Mahmood and Camp Miliband, that it might be that Andy Burnham got to the final decision and thought, you know what, this is exactly the sort of thing I don't want in my government. And when I asked him about the briefings against Ed Miliband this morning, which I did in that broadcast clip for all broadcasters, and I talked to him about this is more of the same, you said you were going to change things, but this is just nasty briefing, it's upsetting people, you aren't the change. He genuinely looked very upset. He said, I reject that description. I do not sanction any of these briefings. I don't like it and I don't want it. And one of his very key allies said to me over the weekend that the problem was, because of this noise around it in the briefings, that they got to the point that whoever he had appointed, be it Mahmood or Miliband, it would have been messy, it would have been controversial. And so what an interesting pivot to move to Healey, someone liked in the party, someone who is extremely experienced, someone that worked in the Treasury for nearly a decade under under Blair and then Gordon Brown. And actually, he's kind of taken a bit of the drama and controversy, he's taken the sting out of all of that, kept Shabana in the Home Office and moved up
and somebody
to the
now who has to find the extra money for defence that he resigned from the Cabinet over, which is a glorious irony.
But in terms of the two people you were talking about, Miliband and Mahmood, the idea of him being about collaboration, collaborative policy, finding common ground, he gets the two of them to walk up Downing Street together, which is just another, to put absolutely aside any of that briefing that you've talked about. I mean, Arlene, what did you think about what are we going to get from John Healey as Chancellor?
Well, I'm very pleased John Healey's the Chancellor. I think he will, because of where he's came from, deal with the defence difficulties. He's already said today that we are going to have a defence budget that is going to meet the requirements of NATO, and I very much welcome that. I have to say, though, in terms of new politics and all of the vibe that's going on at the moment, for Andy Burnham to deny that he was involved in the coup against Keir Starmer, sorry, where is the trust in that? Because that's not true. He was involved in the coup against Keir Starmer. And I just don't think it's credible for him to say that's nothing to do with me. It was all the Parliamentary Labour Party. We knew it wasn't. We knew he was involved.
He wanted to go last September when he gave that interview to the New Statesman. And,
so why not be
the
honest
Labour Party
about it?
Yeah, then he was pushed back. There was a backlash against him. And I remember after Starmer's speech on the Tuesday, I just went to a hotel to see somebody for a drink. And he was in a room with a gold throne sitting on it, and he had a whole load of journalists. You might have even gone in yourself,
I believe
Beth.
I was...
But anyway.
It was like it was a hotel, and it was like a side room, and it had like a kind of...
Just happened to have a gold throne.
Bouncer's, cord.
It's like where a mafia don would, the Godfather would sit.
But in defence of Andy Burnham, there have also been times in recent months where I've asked to go and interview him, And they've been very clear, if you're coming to interview Andy Burnham to ask him about Keir Starmer, he's not going to participate.
Yeah, but
so do it behind closed doors. Well, I mean, that's the point.
That felt like you're selling us porkies. I totally agree with you about that, because Louise Hay gave an interview saying we've been discussing this for a year now. I mean, that's 1 year.
But I don't
only allowing Keir Starmer to be.
But I don't think that Andy Burnham pretended anything
Gordon
else, did he?
But yesterday he did. He said
it
was nothing to do with me.
But I think
the unseating of Keir Starmer.
Yeah. I think he made it clear that he did want to have a shot at the top job if the ball came out of the scrum. And then the question of unseating him, there will be some around Andy Burnham that would say it was Keir Starmer that lost his job. And then Andy Burnham. Yes, but had he not...
As somebody who was the subject of a coup in her own party, let me say very clearly, it takes somebody to organise a coup.
But equally, some of the unforced errors of Keir Starmer's administration gave them ammunition by which he was weakened.
There was a groundswell against Starmer. It became a tipping point. And whatever the organisational skills of Andy Burnham, Lou Haig, Annalise Dodds are, they couldn't have orchestrated it the way it happened. A lot of people just drew the conclusion that voters had turned against Keir Starmer, wouldn't listen to anything Labour did as long as he was Prime Minister, so they had to go for the King of the North
let me say,
in order to
start
what
Linton Crosby said today. Did you see what Linton Crosby said today?
Yeah.
And this is Linton Crosby, who owns a polling company, who does this for a living.
And is very right-wing and normally helps the Conservative Party.
But what he said was, politicians are now taking too much notice of polling that takes place as we go along through Parliament. And so if polling's really poor, then the MPs worry about their seats and say, we need a change. We need a change. And that's why we have now the 5th Prime Minister in 4 years. That is not good for the country.
Arlene,
it's not good for credibility.
I think you'd find it very hard to argue Labour would be in a better position with Keir Starmer still as Prime Minister rather than Andy Burnham. Although Keir Starmer left with dignity and grace.
And let me say, he did leave with dignity and grace and mentioned his successor. Unfortunately, Andy Burnham did not mention Keir Starmer. And I think that's probably because he was speaking without notes. And I'm being generous here. I think it's why. I know, but he still should have said, and I wish Keir all the best, and I hope, everything goes well for him and Victoria, whatever.
I think the big question that I have about Andy Burnham is that you saw today, in those first steps and that first speech, that there is a change in style. There's a change in communication style for sure. I mean, the lectern was removed. He had mics in front of him. He spoke with no notes in a way that David Cameron used to do.
And David Cameron did.
And in a way that is very connecting, I think, to the public. He's very authentic in the way he communicates. But
that's why Arlene's challenging this particular bit, which is a question about his authenticity, if he says he was nothing to do with unseating Starmer.
But equally, he has come in and said quite contradictory things. On the one hand, he says it's the biggest change in the way the country is run in 40 years. He said that he wants to have a 10-year plan for Britain. And then the next sentence he says, but I'm not going to break with the Labour Party manifesto. And I'm like, where is your mandate? It's not 25,000 people in Makerfield. And I think that these are some of the challenges that he's going to have. On the one hand, he's telling the country, I am change. But on the other hand, he's saying, but I am continuity because I'm going to stick within the guardrails of Keir Starmer, be it on the fiscal rules or the manifesto. And I just don't know how he's going to square that.
Contradictions will become apparent pretty quickly.
We've got plenty more time to discuss, but I do want to go to Downing Street right now and speak to our chief political correspondent, John Craig. John, it's nearly 10:25. More people are walking in.
Yes, in the last few minutes, we've seen Stephen Kinnock, son of Neil, a Kinnock in Downing Street, who'd have thought it, and Douglas Alexander, the Scotland Secretary. Stephen Kinnock has been Minister of State at the Health Department. Now, we reckon there's about 15 ministers in there at the moment. I mean, my rough list is still to come out. We've just seen Lisa Nandy leave. She's staying at Department of Culture, Media and Sport. We saw a very grumpy Bridget Phillipson leave. She has lost education, but will continue to attend Cabinet as Minister for Women and Equalities. We've still in there are, for example, Miata Fambula, Alex Norris, Heidi Alexander, Angela Smith, leader Leader of the Lords, Chris Bryant, Ellie Reeves, Alan Campbell, and the two I've just mentioned. And there are some really key jobs that have still not been filled. Now, for example, they are big jobs like, for example, justice, defence. Here we are, I've got a list here of the big jobs still to be filled. Defence Secretary. Now, we haven't seen Dan Jarvis. That suggests perhaps he's not staying on in the job. Justice Secretary, because David Lammy's gone. That's a big job. Might that be a job for Wes Streeting, perhaps? He's one of the ministers in there. Transport, Attorney General, because Lord Hermer's gone. Northern Ireland, Hilary Benn's gone. Scotland, I've mentioned. Wales, Joe Stevens went earlier in the day. Leader of the House of Commons, the current Leader of the Commons, Sir Alan Campbell, is in there. Leader of the Lords, well, will Angela Smith be staying in that job? Party Chair, well, that's obviously a party post rather than a government post. But here we are at, as you say, quite late in the evening, and it's still all going on in there. Part of the reason is because the new Prime Minister has been taking phone calls from foreign leaders, including President Trump, President Macron, Chancellor Merz of Germany, various EU leaders, and also Mark Rutte of NATO. That's probably holding things up. But, I mean, there's 10 or 12 at least still in there. It might be as many as 15. Annalise Midgley's in there. Now, we think she's been confirmed as the new Chief Whip. So normally when there's a reshuffle, of course, the Chief Whip is heavily involved. So she will now be advising the Prime Minister on appointments. Jonathan Reynolds looked very pleased. He's got his old job at Business and Trade back. I mean, most people think that was a balmy decision to move him back in September. So it's still all going on here. So don't go to bed, don't go away. Come back to us when we've got some news.
Yeah. It's gone into extra time, John. When's the penalty shoot?
Penalties. Actually, it was terrible, really, extra time in the football last night, because I was like, I really need to get up.
You do.
I couldn't stop watching. I was like, go to bed.
Yeah, some big jobs, justice and defence. I mean, transport. You know, might that be Heidi Alexander still? I mean, where's Streeting? What's he going to get?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Are there any people in there with legal backgrounds? Because you've got the Justice Secretary and the Attorney General to appoint, or are they going to bring somebody in? Don't forget Lord Hermer was brought in to be Attorney General and put into the House of Lords to do that job. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah, and Northern Ireland Secretary, who are you hoping for or not hoping for?
Well, I'll have to wait and see, won't I? I mean, Hilary Benn was a very steady pair of hands in Northern Ireland, but of course got on the wrong side of unionism in terms of legacy and in terms of some of the European Union bits and pieces. But he was very well regarded, having said that. But, you know...
And the first Catholic Prime Minister. I mean, constitutional fiddles.
Is he, though?
They say born, then. First Catholic born.
What about Boris Johnson?
He converted, but he
thought he was christened as a Catholic.
But I think Burnham is. But
is he a practising Catholic?
Yes,
I don't know.
Because he said the three big influences on his life and his thinking were the Labour Party, Everton, and the Catholic Church. I think in that order.
Yeah.
But can I just? I suspect. I mean, Arlene will say this better than me, but I think most people won't really mind about that, will they? Anymore?
I think the time is gone when people are.
I just don't know if there are constitutional fiddles that need to be done.
I don't think so. I think, and if there are, they will be dealt with very quickly.
Beth, final thought. I presume you're finishing about now. Are you? Or I don't know if you're just carrying on staying with us. But anyway, your final thoughts about what's happening tomorrow. We've got, specific things in place for tomorrow as well, haven't we?
Look, I think my final thought is that, as Kevin was saying, that this has all happened because the Labour Party concluded after the local elections and the run of just terrible news coming out of government, the way in which the country just stopped listening to Keir Starmer, that they could not win the next general election with Keir Starmer as Prime Minister. Now, I interviewed him in his last interview in Ukraine last week, and I think he has a different view. I think Keir Starmer thinks that he could have won the next general election as the Labour leader and the Prime Minister. When I asked him that, he said, I've always thought Labour can win the next election. And I think there will be frustration from him that just as reform is beginning to potentially implode and some of the measures that he put into train early in his premiership are coming to bear fruit, that he's had to hand over the baton. But he's done that, as he said in that interview, because he did not want to implode the government, that he wanted Burnham to succeed. So when you come to Burnham, I think he does come with a big bank of goodwill. I think there is a mass majority in the parliamentary party that genuinely want him to succeed, that need him to succeed in order to hold their seats. I think the real challenge for him is that he has come in and he's promising, in a way, what Starmer promised in 24, change. I'm going to do things differently. You're going to feel the benefits in your lives, in your everyday lives with the cost of living. I'm going to rewire the state. I'm going to have a decade of national renewal. That was Keir Starmer. It could have been Andy Burnham tonight and today. So I think he does have a really big challenge in order to firstly introduce himself to the public, demonstrate that he really is the change, and do that within the current mandate of the current Labour government and that Labour manifesto. And I think that the drumbeat for an early election and the questions around an early election are only going to grow as he gets further into government and becomes potentially more radical in the things that he wants to do. He did a short briefing with some journalists today. I was there. He talked about huge ambition on social care. He said it's been ducked by generations of, or his generation of politicians. He said, I don't want to leave office without fixing it. That's a massive thing to say. He talked about maximum flexibility on the fiscal rules. He didn't rule out changes to tax rates, be that lifting the higher rate of tax or lifting the lower rate of tax, so that people that are caught in fiscal drag as tax bands are frozen and they get pulled into tax to help lower-income people on lower income. So there's this whole range of things that he's saying I will look again at. And to me, he does not have the mandate to do that. So my question, I think, as a political editor covering it, will come back to, do you need to go and get a mandate from the country? Just one final thing. Polling also shows that the public don't know who Andy Burnham is.
That's right.
There hasn't been a general election. There hasn't been a leadership race. Some polling, we did it on our podcast last week, showed that 40% of people, when shown a picture of Andy Burnham, didn't know who he is. And the majority of people in another poll that were asked didn't have an opinion of him. Now, that can be a good thing. But the reason they don't have an opinion is they don't know who he is. So he's got a massive job. He's become the Prime Minister almost by stealth, and now he's got to do the big sell to the country. But he is a good communicator, and it will be very interesting to compare and contrast the leadership style of Keir Starmer to that of Andy Burnham.
Yeah, some fascinating points there. Election, the idea of the man who's taken the job by stealth, or at least in a Navy T-shirt. You know, whether he needs to go to the country. But, Beth, thank you very much indeed. And it's a busy day tomorrow. Privy Council, Cabinet, some sort of speech on cost of living. We'll see if that is changing the threshold at which you start paying tax, possibly.
I think it might be on bus fares or energy bills, but I don't know.
OK, fine. It's cheaper.
And raising the tax.
Yeah,
I don't know, energy bills might be expensive again.
Something like a quick hit to show people that he's serious on cost of living, that is a very retail offer.
Yeah. Get to sleep, and we'll see you tomorrow.
I'm going to go.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. All the newspapers obviously reacting about Andy Burnham and indeed the death of Kevin Keegan as well. So we'll take a look at the stories that are making the front pages after this.
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury. I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides and it's moving this way.
Well, it is time now to see what is making the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers. One story clearly dominating. So let's kick off with The Guardian. It says Andy Burnham arrives as Prime Minister with the promise to bring back hope to Britain and repair damage caused during the Thatcher era. The Daily Express says the new Prime Minister insists he has a 10-year plan. The Daily Mail's headline reads, "Let's pray he knows what he's doing." The Telegraph looks at the shock appointment of John Healey as Chancellor, saying the move signals an increase in defence spending. The Financial Times also discusses the surprise appointment of Mr Healey as Chancellor. Seventh Heaven is the headline on the front page of the Metro, signalling the long line of recent Prime Ministers. The Eye looks at the new Prime Minister's mass sacking of the Starmer cabinet. The Times too leads with the purge of Starmer loyalists from Cabinet. Daily Star also highlights the 10-year plan for change and the promise to sort out the cost of living. And The Sun finally leads on the passing of Kevin Keegan, the English footballer passing away today at the age of 75, King Kev, as they call him. While the Mirror also pays tribute to football legend Kevin Keegan, calling him an icon of a generation. Well, Kevin Maguire, Arlene is here as well. Baroness, apologies, is here as well. So,
dear.
Yeah, no, get it right.
Outrageous.
We've got your paper in there. Obviously, Kevin Keegan is the big picture story, but also it starts now. Burnham moves in. That's
right, I thought you did it very well on Downing Street. I thought it was the best arrival of any Prime Minister I've seen. I think I can do 10 of them. It's all about what's he going to offer, because he wants to make it hit the ground running, as Lizzie Buchan, the political editor, says. And so he signalled he could give low earners a tax cut and help out with energy bills plus bus fares. And he's kind of built up expectations now, so he's got to deliver. Otherwise, people think, where's the beef?
Where's the beef?
Yeah,
exactly.
Where's the action? We don't just want activity, we want real action.
And everybody refers to... I totally forgot his name, Keir Starmer.
That's cruel.
That's
I know,
really
it's brutal.
Winning an election on the word of change and change not being forthcoming quickly enough for people. Another left-leaning paper, The Guardian, Arlene, Burnham arrives as Prime Minister with the promise to bring back hope. How much will the fumes of hope, how far will it get him, do you think?
Well, I mean, he's talking about his plan and he wants a 10-year plan, but if it sounds familiar, that's because it is familiar. Keir Starmer said the same thing, as indeed did Boris Johnson. So they all come in thinking, we're going to be here for 10 years, we're going to deliver on this plan. Wouldn't that be great if that was the case, that we did have someone in office for as long as that? But someone who was in office for as long as that apparently is in his sights, because The Guardian talks about number 10 speech, vows to repair the damage caused during the Thatcher era. Come on, please. Does nobody remember, or does anybody have any knowledge of what it was like before Thatcher came around?
But it chimes with many voters when they look at water and power privatisation.
But what about the economy? Yeah, and growth, and having growth doubled as Thatcher did from the 70s into the 80s. Wouldn't that be great?
The destruction of industry, she let the pound soar, and then 3 million plus unemployed.
Entrepreneurship, wouldn't that be good?
I think you'll find, Arlene, it was absolutely pretty horrific times for many people, and communities are still scarred by Thatcher. And that is the people he is speaking to, and it will chime.
He's not speaking to people who want employment, who want innovation, who want to see the UK doing well right across the place. That's what I want to see.
She elevated the city with the Big Bang in '86. A whole industry sowed the seeds of what happened with the great financial crash.
Oh, now she's
in the 90s.
Isn't that it?
They were terrible times for many people. If everyone sees Thatcher period as happily as you do.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'd rather be in the Thatcher era than in the 1970s. That's all I'm saying.
Britain was a more equal country in the 70s.
Sorry, what?
Britain was a more equal country in the 70s.
Oh, well, we were all poor. That's the point.
Yeah, we were a more equal country.
We were all poor in the 70s.
I think
what we need to see now
unemployment was a lot lower in the 70s.
Oh, yeah. But look, Kevin, come on. Thatcher brought about
wages
growth to this
rose
company,
faster
and we had employment, and we had people who had
you're living in the past.
Confidence.
You're living in the past.
Confidence in this country, and wouldn't it be great to have confidence in this country again? And that's what I want to see.
It was great for the people who managed to buy their council houses, but the housing stock went down from about 5 million to 1.5 million, which is now why you have record social housing waiting lists, and families can't get a secure, affordable house over their heads. Which is why he's now picking up on that too, promising a council house programme. So I know exactly what he's doing, and a lot of these people have gone to reform. They've gone to reform, and he wants to bring them back. Nigel Farage never really wanted to renationalise steel or water or power, but he positioned himself at one point in favour of that because he knew he could attract people in towns in particular who were either left behind or kept behind, who felt they were getting a very raw deal. Okay. And Burnham's very good at that. He knows because he's from one of those areas.
Yeah, and that's why people voted for Brexit. And is he going to deliver on Brexit?
Well, I think we'll ask David Cameron about that and migration controls. And of course, you had Boris Johnson leading the Brexit campaign, and then migration soared.
Just one thing about public ownership of everything, utilities, railways, or whatever. Once you own it, you have to pay for it.
Big state.
And that's
all the debt goes onto the state then. All the debt goes into the state then.
But you will find you often, if you privatise it, you're paying through higher bills, or you're giving public subsidies like we're going to the rail industry, which the privatised rail industry got far more in public subsidies than British Rail ever got in public investment.
It was not being invested in. We all remember the jokes about British Rail and how rubbish it was. And so there was not state investment in it. And so you're looking back with rose-tinted glasses about state ownership of many of these elements.
How did the rail industry, how was it benefited, or power or water consumers, by billions and billions of pounds going out in profits out of those industries to shareholders and dividends? How did it benefit consumers that the water industry was privatised in 1989 debt-free and is now buried in debt? I think Thames alone is something like £17 billion.
But debt-free because it was state-owned.
Yeah, they were sold out debt, and then the companies, rather than investing, ran up huge debts and took money out in dividends.
What is the proportion of dividend expenditure to what has been invested? If it's a tiny fraction of dividend, then you'll say, kind of happy days, because don't forget, many pension pots are investing in these companies.
I don't think anyone would say water is happy days. As your bill goes up for a service that is poor when you look at the amount of sewage that goes in rivers and seas, and that was an election.
I'm just saying it's going to be a big bill. It's going to be a big bill for the states.
I don't know who's going to pay for that, as well as the welfare bill, as well as the defence budget. So
did we see The Guardian? I've now completely forgotten. Burnham arrived. I think we did. It was about hope. Yes. There we are.
I would love to see hope. I'd love to see confidence back in the country, and I'd love to see people investing in the country again, and that's what we want to see.
So with the Daily Mail, with a prayer, it looks like actually here. Let's hope he knows what he's doing. Yeah. Do you think he does? I mean, he's very experienced, isn't he?
Andy Burnham?
Yeah.
Well, he's been in the cabinet 3 times.
Yeah.
But this is what we'll find out. But he's got all the vibes. He's saying the right things, but can he deliver? Beth Rigby pointed out earlier, if he's going to stick to fiscal rules that Labour had in 2024, he's going to stick to that manifesto. His actual room for manoeuvre is probably tighter than he suggests. And you have John Healey as the new Chancellor. Well, there we are. He quit as Defence Secretary over defence spending. He's going to find the extra defence spending to go up to that NATO goal as an extra £20 billion. How are you going to do that? And cut bus fares, raise tax thresholds to put more money into people's pockets. Also cut energy bills. I mean, there's a lot of... And build council houses. All those things I'd approve of. I wouldn't go for the extra defence spending because we spend so much already as the world's 6th biggest spender. But nevertheless, all these issues are going to come and confront him. And I thought it was a very good speech. He's got the right vibes. He's in touch with people he communicates, but he's going to have to come up with a practical answers, and that is going to be more difficult.
Absolutely. There is the Daily Mail, then talks about the leftist agenda. The question really is whether the fact that somebody who wasn't even an MP at the time of the last election really is allowed to be as radical as he wants to be, and whether actually people thought when they were voting in Keir Starmer it was a slightly centrist Labour, Blairite-type government.
Yeah,
really?
I think...
Quite middle of the road. And now... wealth taxes, more taxes perhaps on the middle classes as well, that actually it is the poorest in society who will benefit from this, renationalisation. Where is he going to be allowed to do that?
I accept there's a question around mandates and that change. It's a parliamentary system, there's the 19th Prime Minister since the war, 10 of them have come through the route he's come, the parliamentary rather than the general election. But these are fair questions. He has to answer them and he has to tackle them. Although I will say the Daily Mail, which has been calling for an early general election, I don't recall it calling for an early general election when the Conservatives changed in this way. And I will also add, when Liz Truss did come through this way and had that disastrous budget, they said, at last,
but she had a competition.
At last, a Conservative budget
against.
Yeah, but nevertheless, she...
And that went on for a very long time, and people heard what her policies were.
That's not the point. She came through a party. He's come through a party changing under the parliamentary system. And they did. The Daily Mail, when she lurched off to the right with her budget, they hailed it. They didn't say, you haven't got a mandate. Well, where did people vote for this?
I mean, look, you can talk about the Tory press and the right-wing press.
I'm just pointing out hypocrisy.
The other mirror of that,
I'm pointing
the mirror
out,
of that is the left-wing press are doing exactly the same.
I am pointing out
Andy
hypocrisy.
Burnham. They're doing exactly the same with Andy Burnham, so they're hypocrites as well. Is that what you're saying?
I've long argued if a party changes leader and Prime Minister, there should be a general election within, say, 6. I've long argued that. I did when the Conservatives. I think it's the case here. I'm consistent on that.
Well, I think...
The Mail hasn't been consistent
and neither has
at all.
the Mirror or any of those other papers on the left. So, let's be clear about that. But I think it is...
It's not clear like that. I've just told you I've been consistent.
Yeah, well, you have been consistent, but the Mirror hasn't been consistent. But let's be clear. I think if he goes to the country in October, I will say that's fair enough. You've gone to the country with your plan. You've set out your plan now, and I hope he does set out his plan when he has his conference and what have you. He says he's going to set it out in due course. That's fine. But in the meantime, we need the country to be governed, and we await to see who the rest of his cabinet's going to be. And I hope that they do get going, because Parliament is now in recess as regards the House of Commons, and we need to see the plan as soon as possible.
Arlene, Kevin, thank you for that. It was fiery, wasn't it? Goodness me, and that was just about Thatcherism. Would you believe it?
Don't set Arlene off again.
No, exactly, yeah.
Oh, listen to him.
Yeah.
Sorry, Arlene.
And we think there are still 15 people in Downing Street right now waiting to see what jobs they got, so do stay tuned for that. Also to come, we will visit one corner to see if Andy Burnham can help those who are struggling to pay their bills. Back in a moment.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling. War, unrest, revolutions.
It's not his country, it's ours.
They have succeeded for the first time in their country's history in removing a leader from power.
No freedom!
Sky News, the full story first.
There was fighting here, but there's clearly now a lull, and they're using it to bring up more ammunition.
This is a mass exodus in which Russia is hemorrhaging some of its brightest and its best. According to the local weather channel, there have been more than 2,500 lightning strikes and flash flooding, all on top of this week's lethal tornado. What stays with you most in this job is some of the people you meet. What is your worst fear about what the Russians want to do to the children?
They're just boosting demographics by stealing young people.
Would you like to take the opportunity, Mr. President, on Sky News to invite Barack Obama to come here? Mr. Trump, are you running for president? Can you confirm it?
We're going to take a look, a very serious look.
On that day, we saw your fighters killing women, killing children. Was that a mistake? Did you go too far? You couldn't control your fighters? The full force of the state is being used to crush any protest. Free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in.
Another alarm. The mood here is jittery and nervous.
We're seeing the world get more and more divided, and it's our job to try to make sense of it all.
The cameras are poised here, there, everywhere.
The day those present would never forget.
First question, Sky News.
Do you hate the thought of losing to him?
I hate the thought of losing to anyone.
Historic day here today.
They are pushing forward.
They dashed to the water.
Wait, what country are you
From the UK.
Why don't you go back to your country?
Huge questions to be grappled with.
That is totally unprecedented.
Been quite some day.
We start with breaking news.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party.
I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi.
Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
So we have a new Defence Secretary. Let us find out who it is by heading to our chief political correspondent, John Craig. Still looking down the street. John, who are you expecting?
He's just come out. Wes Streeting, this is the new Defence Secretary. Wes Streeting, who dramatically quit as Health Secretary. And, of course, that was one of the moves that brought about the demise of Sir Keir Starmer. Well, you could say he's been rewarded with a big promotion. Very important job in the cabinet, of course. The war in Ukraine, all sorts of international tensions. Of course, the war in the Middle East. Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary for the last few years, been seen as a pretty good Health Secretary, good record as a minister. Very good communicator, one of Labour's best communicators. And he's going to take on the very important job as Defence Secretary just across the road. He's just left here. He's just gone through there into the Foreign Office. The Ministry of Defence is just over there. And so Wes Streeting looked pretty pleased. He has come out of this very well. He is one of the big winners of this reshuffle. Another winner is Alex Norris. And now, he's not particularly well known. He's been a minister, a middle-ranking minister for a while. First of all, now at the Home Office. Now he is going to become Lord Chancellor and Secretary of State for Justice, replacing David Lammy. He's unflashy. There's nothing particularly flashy about him at all, really. Safe pair of hands. Of course, he's got to sort out this row over the changes to jury trials, which David Lammy was facing a big rebellion over. Angela Eagle. She, great survivor, Angela Eagle, veteran of the Blair and Brown years. Secretary of State for Environment, Rural and Food and Rural Affairs. She's worked in that department before. Miata Fambulla, Secretary of State for Energy Security and Net Zero. She is the MP for Peckham, Harriet Harman's old seat, one of Mr. Burnham's inner circle. She gets the key job of Energy Secretary.
John, thank you very much indeed for that. Keep us posted. There's still more to find out. We've got about a minute left. Arlene, your thoughts on the latest appointments?
Obviously, we're now seeing allies of Burnham being rewarded. Miata Fambulla is a relatively new MP. She only came in 2024. Alex Norris, I think, is 2017. So these are new faces and new names to the public, certainly new names to me as well. So people will take a while to get to know all of these new faces. Of course, Angela Eagle is somebody that's very well known.
Streeting, just quickly?
Yeah, I know you get tanks, but I'm wondering how much of a promotion it is from health with the, with such a huge budget. But
did you say you get tanks?
Tank as Defence Secretary, yeah.
Okay.
But I'm just wondering whether it is really a bigger job than health, given the importance of health. I know defence is important too, but that's quite. He's been on manoeuvres against Starmer, so
yeah, there you go, getting ready for it. Lots more still to come. More names. Don't go away.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
A historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury. I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides, and it's moving this way.
Tonight on The Wrap, a new era begins on yet another day of comings and goings in Downing Street. Andy Burnham is Britain's new Prime Minister, the 7th in just 10 years. He promises the biggest changes in 40 years and says he'll bring back hope.
I will put the care of people at the heart of everything I do. I will give this my all.
And he started by sacking no fewer than 10 cabinet ministers. The Chancellor Rachel Reeves is out, so too David Lammy. And in a major plot twist, former Defence Secretary John Healey gets her job. We'll look at what that means for the new government and for the country. Well, a smile and a hug for Ed Miliband, who is named Foreign Secretary, and Shabana Mahmood, who stays as Home Secretary. And just minutes ago, Wes Streeting is announced as the new Defence Secretary. There are still more to come. Also on the programme tonight, sad news this evening. Kevin Keegan, the player the fans called King Kev, has died at the age of 75. We'll celebrate the life of one of England's all-time greats. And discuss the day's biggest stories with the former First Minister of Northern Ireland, Baroness Arlene Foster, and the Daily Mirror's Kevin Maguire. Plus a first look, of course, at the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers, including The Guardian, which says Andy Burnham promises to bring back hope. Well, hello, good evening to you. Kevin, Arlene, welcome as well. Andy Burnham, then, is the latest in a long line of Prime Ministers in the past decade, but he was still able to surprise us today, naming John Healey as his Chancellor. Ed Miliband and Shabana Mahmood ride together in Downing Street. Both have big jobs, Foreign Secretary and Home Secretary, respectively. But the former Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, and Keir Starmer's deputy, David Lammy, are both out and will sit on the backbenches. Arlene, Kevin, another day of turbulence, intrigue, your thoughts?
And that's just the studio. No, I think this has been a huge change. The Times calls it a purge, and it has been a huge change in terms of those who were loyal to Starmer have gone. And he has replaced them with people who are loyal to him and have been helping him to become the Prime Minister. And it'll be very interesting to see what his plan is. But you know, it's a new start. Let's see where it goes.
Yeah, we'll discover soon whether he's better making subs than Thomas Tuchel. But it is incredibly widespread, this, because there is a purge of the Starmerites. I think Pat McFadden is possibly the only one who's survived at working pensions. And he said he wouldn't be factional. This kind of feels factional when he's taken out what was the dominant faction. Now, whether that's going to consolidate his control, he gets new blood, moves people around, and it works or not, we don't know. But I suspect really what people at home want are the policies and how they're going to impact on their lives rather than the personalities, although the policies and the politics are linked to the personalities too.
Yeah, well, as Andy Burnham said to The Times, it's a team sport, is it not? But you're right, we've got a lot of people on the backbenches who might be critical. Breaking news, though, in the last few minutes, our chief political correspondent, John Craig, is outside number 10 tonight. And it involves a big cabinet post, John, and a big character, someone who stepped aside to let Andy Burnham walk through. Bring us the news.
It's Wes Streeting. He gets the top job of Defence Secretary. It's a big promotion, really, from Health Secretary, the job he did before. Remember, he resigned, said he wanted to stand for the leadership. I remember being at a conference when he said in an answer to my question, yes, I will be putting my name forward as a candidate for the leadership. Well, he never did, but he is now the new Defence Secretary. What does that mean for Dan Jarvis? Well, obviously, he's lost that job. He has just a minute ago offered Wes Streeting his congratulations. But significantly, the official announcement about Mr. Streeting's job does not say that Mr. Jarvis is leaving the government, so he is perhaps going to get, say, a Minister of State job. He's only been Defence Secretary a few weeks since John Healey quit, triggering the beginning of the end for Sir Keir Starmer. Dan Jarvis was previously Security Minister. Looks as though he might be getting another job, but perhaps not quite so senior. Now, also, the same announcement as Wes Streeting just about 10 minutes ago, Alex Norris, not particularly well-known figure, Minister of State at the Home Office, he gets a big promotion to David Lammy's old job, Lord Chancellor and Secretary of State for Justice. Angela Eagle, a stalwart of Labour governments going back to the Blair and Brown years. She became an MP in 1992. She's had all sorts of government jobs, Home Office. She's been at DEFRA before. She's Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. And Miatta Fahnbulleh, who a big Burnham ally, MP for Harriet Harman's old seat of Peckham. She gets Secretary of State for Energy Security and Net Zero. Well, earlier in the day, as well as the appointment of John Healey, I must admit, I always thought there was a possibility he wouldn't choose either Shabana Mahmood or Ed Miliband because they were too divisive, much too divisive. And I always thought John Healey was a dark horse for that job. Treasury experience as a minister under Gordon Brown. Of course, with the course, he quit over the black hole in defence spending. No doubt Andy Burnham said, well, now you're Chancellor, you can find the money. So that's a tough task for him as Chancellor of the Exchequer. One of the other more eye-catching moves is the demotion of Yvette Cooper from Foreign Office to Health. Now, Rachel Reeves, we believe, was offered a lesser cabinet job than Chancellor. Defence was mentioned, we don't know that for sure. She turned it down, whereas Yvette Cooper has accepted what looks like a demotion from Foreign Office to Health. She's going to spearhead Mr Burnham's crusade to try and fix social care. So in many ways, that's an important job. Other non-moves, Lisa Nandy stays where she is. Pat McFadden stays at Culture, Media and Sport. Pat McFadden stays at DWP. But Anna, there are still... Oh, somebody's coming out. Oh, Chris Bryant. What job have you got, Chris? Come on, Chris, tell us. What's your job, Chris? Come on, tell us.
John, I can tell you.
It's not...
I can tell you, John.
Chris Bryant to be shy, is it?
No, I
Yeah,
know,
go
but
on,
I can tell you what he's got. This will be of interest to Arlene next to me. So Chris Bryant is Secretary of State for Northern Ireland. Stephen Kinnock is Secretary of State for Wales, which I guess we were anticipating. Ellie Reeves is Attorney General. She will attend Cabinet.
Right.
Emma Reynolds is Chief Secretary to the Treasury. She will attend Cabinet. Kanishka Narayan is Minister of State for Artificial Intelligence, jointly in the Cabinet Office and the Department of Digital, Culture, Media and Sport. He will attend Cabinet. Hamish Faulkner is Minister for Intergovernmental Relations and European Relations, jointly in the Cabinet and the Foreign Office. He will attend Cabinet. Heidi Alexander will remain as Secretary of State for Transport. Douglas Alexander will remain as Secretary of State for Scotland. Sir Alan Campbell will remain as... Just going to move your papers, Arlene, so I can scroll down. This is a long list. Yes. Alan Campbell will remain as Lord President of the Council and Leader of the House of Commons. Baroness Smith of Basildon will remain as Lord Privy Seal and Leader of the House of Lords. Matthew Pennycook will remain as Minister of State in the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government. He will attend Cabinet. And Hilary Benn, Lord Hermer and Joe Stevens have left the government, which we knew, but you get later confirmation of that. So Northern Ireland Secretary, first of all, Arlene?
Yes, well, I mean, I was just looking up where Chris Bryant actually represents, and I think he represents a Welsh constituency.
Isn't it the Rhondda? Yeah.
Not the first Welsh MP to be Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, of course, Peter Hain and... Lord Murphy, as he is now, Paul Murphy. So, so we look forward to seeing what his views are in relation to Northern Ireland. It's also interesting, Ellie Reeves, of course, was the Solicitor General for England and Wales and has now been made Attorney General. That's quite a
related to Rachel Reeves, obviously.
Yes, Rachel Reeves' sister. That's quite a big step up.
And she was a solicitor, she was an employment lawyer.
Yeah.
John, your reaction, I know you're going to try and shout at some of these people leaving. I'm just so intrigued. Have they all been in the same anteroom chatting over a cup of tea? Who's that?
Staying where you are, you two. Happy with that? Absolutely, says Sir Alan Campbell. Happy to be staying as Leader of the House of Commons. The always entertaining exchanges in the House of Commons on a Thursday morning. Now then, let's just go through those. Stephen Kinnock, I think he was always on the road to the cabinet, really. Neil Kinnock's son, of course, Welsh Secretary. He becomes Secretary of State for Wales, replacing Joe Stevens. Chris Bryant. Now, he's one of the government's better communicators, an extrovert character. Sir Chris Bryant, as he now is, moves up from Minister of State for Trade. Northern Ireland, he is the sort who's got the political skills to deal with that tricky post. Ellie Reeves, as you've said, that's Rachel's sister, moves up to take over from Lord Hermer as Attorney General. That's quite a good promotion for her. Emma Reynolds, now she's moved from Environment to Chief Secretary to the Treasury, will attend Cabinet. And Kanishka Narayan MP, Now, he is seen as a really bright, techie young man. He's MP for Vale of Glamorgan. He's Welsh of Indian heritage, and he is Mr. Techie, really. And he's going to be Minister for AI in the Cabinet and in Culture, Media and Sport. He'll attend Cabinet. Pretty rapid promotion for him. Hamish Faulkner, of course, the son of Charlie Faulkner. Well, he gets the job, basically, that was done by Nick Thomas Simmons, who was one of the Starmerites purged in that brutal cull. Hamish Faulkner, he's going to be called Minister for Intergovernmental Relations and European Relations. In other words, he's going to be doing all those talks with the EU over what Mr. Keir Starmer used to call the reset. Heidi Alexander stays at Transport. Douglas Alexander, who a veteran of the Brown years, some thought he might get a move or a promotion, but he stays as Scotland Secretary. And as we've just seen, Alan Campbell and Baroness Smith have just left. I'm not sure if we've still got a few more appointments to come or whether that's the whole lot, actually. That might be the lot, but I will check that for you. Very interesting appointments.
Final appointments, actually, John. I know we've got junior ministers to come. That's a whole other day of entertainment tomorrow, isn't it? But, you know, some of these people that we've heard about, like Kanishka Narayan, Minister of State, you know, for AI, you know, they're doing really well, aren't they, John?
But, I mean, you see him at the dispatch box at what used to be called science and technology questions. Really impressive. And he really is a rising star. As I say, MP for Vale of Glamorgan in South Wales. He's Welsh, but obviously of Indian heritage, and he's very much one for the future, a rising star. You could probably say the same about Hamish Faulkner, actually. He's one on the way up. I mean, Stephen Kinnock, I think you could say, has been knocking on the cabinet door for a while, been an effective minister at the Department of Health. Chris Bryant also has been knocking on the cabinet door. Ellie Reeves, that's a good promotion for her. There might have been a thought that perhaps Dame Emily Thornberry might have got the job of Attorney General that she shadowed in opposition and then was, according to many of her friends, very shoddily overlooked when Sir Keir Starmer brought in his legal crony Lord Hermer to that job. Well, he's only lasted a couple of years. And Emma Reynolds, well, it's a slight demotion for her, isn't it? Although working at the Treasury, of course, is a top job, she loses her cabinet status. She was at Environment. That job's gone to the veteran, I think we hope she doesn't mind me calling her that, Angela Eagle. So I think, you think we're there, do you? I mean, you've got the benefit of me. Douglas, staying where you are, happy about that? Very happy, says Douglas Alexander. He's staying as Secretary of State for Scotland. Well, of course, he is leading the government's fight against the SNP in Scotland. I mean, that didn't go very well on May the 7th. I remember him telling journalists that just before those elections, that the task for the Labour Party in Scotland was to convince voters that it was a referendum on the SNP government, not on the Starmer government. Well, that didn't work because, of course, Labour did very badly in Scotland. Yeah. So, but he seems pretty pleased to be staying where he is, and there's quite a few staying where they are. But in the last few minutes, 20 minutes or so, the big announcement really is Wes Streeting to the Ministry of Defence.
Yes, I suppose in the by-election in Aberdeen South, it was a bit of a referendum on how the SNP and Labour were doing, and the Tories came through the middle, John, as you remember, because, you know, I was with you then. But, yeah, John, I think you're going to carry on shouting at people who are leaving, which makes you chuckle. I don't know why.
They've been locked in a room for 5 hours, and then you come out and you've got John Craig bellowing at you across the street. You've been worrying about your job, your prospects.
Yeah. So give us some themes now. We've got, I mean, this does say the final appointments as approved by the King. So, I mean, we've got the senior people that were announced. First, obviously, the first people we saw walking in, John Healey, Ed Miliband, Shabana Mahmood as well. Those three were the first in. But what's the shape of this government?
I think there's more change than continuity. Right. He's purged the Starmerites. He's brought in some fresh talent. And I would think because of the people he's brought in, Lou Haig, for instance, Lucy Powell as Education Secretary, Miatta Fambulla at Energy, and a few others, he's moved it leftwards. It's not a lurch, but he has moved it leftwards from Keir Starmer. Although some left-wingers have gone, people like Joe Stevens in in Wales, I think, was more the left-winger than Stephen Kinnock, for instance.
OK. Should we have a look back at the day? It's been, you know, another interesting day. We're getting used to these now, let's be honest about it. But anyway, nonetheless, a new Prime Minister. Here's our political editor, Beth Rigby, who spent the day in Downing Street.
Downing Street packed for a spectacle that has become all too familiar. The country waiting for its fifth Prime Minister in 4 years. Occasions once punctuated by elections rather than coups. Starmer's ousting in the end bloodless, but not without pain for his closest allies and aides lying in the street for the final farewell. The outgoing PM forced out of office not by voters, but his party, taking the stage for one last time.
Thank you.
After 2 years in Downing Street, Starmer clear he wants history to remember what he built, not the coup that brought him down.
My work is done. In 6.5 years, I took our party from a historic defeat in 2019, changed it so it was fit to face the country, and won a landslide general election victory in 2024. I am confident that Britain is now stronger and fairer than it was 2 years ago.
And even in defeat, Starmer determined to go with dignity.
So, as I now pass the baton to Andy Burnham, I wish him every success. He has my full support. I go with good grace, I go with a smile, and I go proud of everything that we have achieved. Thank you very much.
Embracing his wife, Victoria, who helped him make the final decision to stand down, applauded all the way to the gates, then on to Buckingham Palace to hand in his official resignation to the King. One premiership over and another just beginning. Burnham next to Buckingham Palace to ask permission to form a new Labour government. The new Prime Minister and his wife, Marie-France, arriving to rapturous crowds. The joy on Burnham's face plain to see.
Thank you.
This moment over a decade in the making, and he took it all in. A new Prime Minister and a new style, no lectern, no notes.
I know people at home are fed up with politics. I hear you, and I want to be honest with you. We have not been good enough, and we need to be better. We will be.
But like Starmer before him, Burnham promised a decade of change.
Later this year, I will bring forward a new plan for Britain, a 10-year plan, laying out a path from where we are now to where I believe we all want Britain to be, wherever we're coming from, whatever party we support.
And immediate support on the cost of living.
But I can do something to give people some breathing space now, some help with the cost of living. And I will set out some of those measures starting tomorrow, including how we pay for them.
This his pitch to the British people he now needs to win around.
I will give this my all, and I ask you all to pull with me. Let us make this the moment when Britain starts to believe again, the moment we bring back hope. Thank you very much, everybody.
Hugging his wife and his aides, but the longest embrace saved for his mother, Eileen, who has seen her son try and fail to become Labour leader twice to finally realise his dream and enter number 10. Before coming to Downing Street, Burnham took a dawn visit to a homelessness charity in Victoria, here to outline his first order as PM to end rough sleeping in the UK. Big ambitions, but this, a leader without a mandate. You said on Friday in your speech as you accepted the Labour leadership that you want to deliver the biggest change in our politics in 40 years. It sounds like a massive ambition for which you do need a mandate beyond the 25,000 people who voted for you in the Makerfield by-election. When are you going to call a general election?
Well, we're in a parliamentary democracy, and as we've seen through time, if somebody can command the majority of the MPs in the House of Commons, obviously they then have the legitimacy to lead things forward. And I will lead forward consistent with the manifesto, which also talked about change. And I now want to work on the platform.
But you are going to stick to the manifesto, just to be clear. You are not going to go beyond the manifesto of 2024.
I will stick to the manifesto. I will be bold and I will be true to what it says. But there are big changes that I can implement coming from that manifesto. It is about a new political model. Okay. It is about a new economic model for the country.
A new economic model and a new team to execute it. John Healey made Chancellor, having quit Keir Starmer's government after a battle over defence spending. Meanwhile, the duo who had been mooted for that role ended up in other big offices of state. Shabana Mahmood remaining as Home Secretary and Ed Miliband going to the Foreign Office. Burnham also bringing in his key allies. Campaign Chief Louise Haigh back in Cabinet as First Secretary of State in charge of the Cabinet Office. New MP and close ally Annalise Midgley elevated to Cabinet. This is a huge moment. We have a new Prime Minister, but without an election or even a leadership race, he is a man that some of you perhaps don't know. He's been ushered into the biggest job in the country by a Labour Party that believes it has a better chance of winning the next election with Burnham at the helm. And you can see from his first steps in his first speech that he wants to be a different kind of leader. But if he also wants to stick to Starmer's manifesto and mandate, can Burnham really be the change he says he is? He enters Downing Street promising to deliver the biggest change in how this country is governed in 40 years, with a 10-year plan for reform. But with voters out of patience and low on trust, he'll have to deliver much sooner than that. Beth Rigby, Sky News, Westminster.
Well, we've just actually had the readout via a Truth Social post of the conversation that the US President Donald Trump had with Andy Burnham. Should we take a look at that? It says, I had a very good conversation with the new Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Andy Burnham. We discussed many subjects, including the outstanding relationship we have had with the UK, which makes you laugh when you talk about bases in Iran. But anyway, we will be meeting in the not-too-distant future for topics of mutual interest. The Prime Minister has got a big job ahead of him, but he'll be able to do it. And, of course, the USA will be there to help! ! We discussed North Sea oil, trade, the military alliance, demining of the Hormuz Strait and many other topics. The call was interesting and went very well. I wished Prime Minister Burnham good luck and Godspeed! !
No mention of Manchester. I'm very disappointed.
That comes late. It doesn't...
well, because Downing Street, they said what they had discussed with President Trump and said that they had invited him to Manchester. So it was very disappointing that Trump hasn't acknowledged.
He hasn't really bitten them, has he? I mean, they wanted to play up the northern bit, and he wants to play. You know, I told him everything he must do.
Yeah. Well, it comes, of course, as we get a new Foreign Secretary, Ed Miliband. What he will do with, there we go, shaking hands with and a hug with Andy Burnham. Quick look at the camera as well.
It's a bit awkward.
Yeah, well, did he want the job of Chancellor? I mean, we might find that out at a later date. So you might argue that his brief that he had, energy and net zero, overlaps with international issues, including perhaps the foreign aid budget as well. But the bigger, broader geopolitics of the day, which is the war in Ukraine, it is the war in Iran, it's how to deal with President Trump, relations with the European Union. What's he going to be like?
Yeah, it was interesting because Keir Starmer never here. Keir, as he was called, played a big part in foreign relations. So if you were David Lammy, Yvette Cooper, you'd have been big-footed a lot of the time. He wants to concentrate on the domestic agenda. Now, Prime Minister's traditionally get pulled into foreign affairs. They then begin to quite like being on the world stage where they're treated rather well. While if you go to a council estate somewhere, you might find a whole load of angry residents upset about their living standards. So it'll be interesting if he is going to kind of subcontract most of it to Ed Miliband, which will make it a very big job.
Yeah,
and,
totally.
And Ed Miliband, there's Red Ed, there's Green Ed, there's Odd Ed, and
Ed Stone,
he can be very charming, and he's incredibly bright.
Many people remember, though, if you remember, there was a red line drawn about chemical weapons being used against his own people by Bashar al-Assad, the Syrian leader. I think it was back in 2013, where David Cameron sought parliamentary approval for Britain to join limited military action by the United States. And the suggestion was that Ed Miliband effectively stopped that, which then drew a line and made Barack Obama not bomb Syria, even though it was one of his red lines. So, what does that say about what his approach to
Well, I think people
foreign
remember
policy?
that because today there were people tweeting about the fact that he had indicated he would support limited military action and then decided to whip his people against that. So people remember that. They remember that Assad was using chemical weapons against his own people, and we weren't able to help out in military strikes. And I don't think that bodes particularly well.
Well, I think that was a legacy of Afghanistan and Iraq, which could hardly be described as great successes, but also Libya. Libya in 2011, which was limited at the time.
France and the UK.
Yeah, Gaddafi actually sort of bullied the Americans into becoming part of it. Gaddafi was threatening reprisals against groups in the east of Libya who were rising up. And then, of course, we intervened and Libya ended in a terrible place. Now, it may have been going to a terrible place in the first place, but it ended up in a terrible place from our intervention. I think that scarred many Labour MPs.
40 years of terrible leadership under Gaddafi.
Yep.
And, everybody was coming up to me in the streets in Libya and saying, can you find my father? I've not seen him for 20 years.
Horrific.
I mean, it was horrific.
Yeah.
So, what were you defending by not taking action?
Yeah, but by taking action, you don't always produce a better result. You can't bomb countries into democracy or a more peaceful area.
Well, I'm sure the people
as the Americans are finding with Iran,
who were being attacked by their own leader in terms of chemical weapons, would have liked some assistance at that time, Kevin, to be honest.
No, I understand that, but I think imperial interventions don't always produce the desired results.
Well, foreign relations is a massive issue. Questions about whether Andy Burnham has a mandate from the British public. New Prime Minister certainly promised to be bold, to bring in a new political and a new economic model, he said today, for the country, and to listen to people. He stressed this, didn't he? He listens to people. Well, Sky's People and Politics correspondent Nick Martin has been to Runcorn to see what voters think of a new PM just 2 years after an election.
The town of Frodsham lies between rural Cheshire and metropolitan Manchester. It's the type of sceptical Labour heartland Andy Burnham needs to win back.
We need something different, we need something new, not just a rehash of what we've had before. We need better, don't we?
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, nothing can get worse. And we need somebody there who's at our side and who's looking out for us and raise our country back up. It's a big job that he's got to do, a huge job.
And do you have faith in Andy Burnham to be able to help you to grow as a business?
I think so. I do. I hope so. I really do. I mean, nothing can get much worse right now, can it?
I think home and family is the most important thing rather than business, because that's where it all starts. And I think we've been let down, this country's been let down from past governments. Leaderships, I mean, Labour is our chosen government, but the leadership hasn't been there.
Andy Burnham's promised to narrow the north-south divide, hand more power to local communities and finally tackle the crisis in social care. So are people buying that?
Up the wages, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I'm a carer on minimum wage. It's not good. There's people working in warehouses that are on more than me, but I do a hell of a lot more than they do.
Runcorn was built on industry, chemicals, docks and manufacturing. Today, voters are asking who can deliver jobs, growth and a solid future.
I've got my level 1 joinery, my level 2 joinery. I've just currently finished college. I am
currently unemployed at the minute. I've just finished. I'm just assessing my options at the minute. I am finding it harder to find a job and things like that. But I suppose we'll all get there. Like, I suppose if the new Prime Minister comes in and does what he says he's going to do, things should sort out, shouldn't they?
Constituencies like this are fascinating because Labour lost control of this seat during a by-election to Reform, and that will be key for Andy Burnham, trying to win some of those Reform voters back to Labour.
I am a Reform voter.
Have you heard him say anything about anything that would convince you that he's going to tackle immigration?
I haven't.
Ultimately, Andy Burnham's success won't be measured by speeches on Downing Street or headlines in Westminster. It will be whether people feel like their lives have got better. Nick Martin, Sky News, Runcorn.
Well, we will take a look at the front pages, their reaction to what we've seen today and the appointments. We'll also be discussing the life of King Kevin Keegan.
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury. I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides, and it's moving this way.
Well, shall we take a look at the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers now? Let us start with The Guardian. There it is. It says Andy Burnham arrives as PM with a promise to bring back hope to Britain and repair damage caused during the Thatcher era. The Daily Express says the new Prime Minister insists he has a 10-year plan. The Daily Mail's headline reads, "Let's pray he knows what he's doing." The Telegraph looks at the shock appointment of John Healey as Chancellor, saying the move signals an increase in defence spending. There's the Financial Times. It discusses the surprise appointment of Mr Healey as Chancellor. Seventh Heaven asks the Metro, signalling the long line of recent Prime Ministers. The Eye looks at the new Prime Minister's mass sacking of the Starmer cabinet. The Times too leads with the purge of Starmer loyalists from cabinet. Daily Star highlights the 10-year plan for change, but it features a picture of the late, great Kevin Keegan. And the passing of Kevin Keegan dominates The Sun, the English footballer passing away today at the age of 75. The Daily Mirror also pays tribute to football legend Kevin Keegan, calling him an icon of a generation. Main story, though, it starts now as Burnham moves in. What is he? Is he the 8th Labour Prime Minister? Do you remember we talked about this? In history, yeah.
The kind of, it's known the 7th in 10 years, but he's the 8th in Labour history.
Yeah.
Keir Starmer will be the shortest serving. Yeah, because he would have only done 2 years. I think Jim Callaghan did 3. Gordon Brown did 3. Yeah, he's only the 8th, but he's kind of come in with a bang with his big shake-up. But you need to see the policies. That will be the real test. That's what voters will know, because voters won't know most of the cabinet ministers, and they won't know the ones coming in here. But they'll certainly know if there's more money in their pockets, or they see public services are better.
Yeah, and the idea is a slight laser focus on cost of living. Yep. We're expecting an announcement on Tuesday, Privy Council cabinet meeting. I mean, they've only just gone to bed, some of them, and they've been holed up in Downing Street for most of the evening. And then possibly this announcement about cost of living, potentially on buses. £2, whatever it might be, a cap of some sort. And then potentially energy. But we know intervention in energy bills has been hugely costly, has it not, to the Treasury? So
hugely costly, and of course doesn't work in Northern Ireland because we have a separate energy market, and of course the buses don't count in Northern Ireland either because that's separate again. So I mean, one wonders, is he looking at the whole of the UK, or is he just looking at England at the moment? Because I think the buses wouldn't apply to Scotland either, because they have their own separate transport system as well. He talks about a new economic model. But, I mean, as Beth was saying earlier, where does that sit with him saying that, given that he doesn't have his own mandate to deliver a new economic model? And if he is going to deliver a new economic model, how is he going to do that? What's his plan to deliver on that? He said today, and it's quoted in the Times, that he would meet our commitments on defence to our international allies, and, of course, we would stick by our fiscal rules. So the question is, how is he going to do all of that and deal with welfare and deal with... we heard earlier from a young man saying he had been involved in training, couldn't get a job. How does he deal with that? Because NEETs are a real problem. They're not in education or training and not in a job. So there's a huge swathe of things that he needs to deal with. And this is all about, he wants to set a vibe. I get that. He wants to set confidence. He wants to set hope. But very quickly, we're going to have to see what comes next.
We were looking at pictures of him entering Downing Street alongside his wife. It must be mind-blowing. We know he's long held, wanted this job as Labour leader and Prime Minister, first standing in 2010, 2015. Yeah. This is literally third time lucky for him. But mind-blowing job. And we've just had the readout of his conversation with President Trump, who said he's got a big job ahead of him, but he'll be able to do it. He had a very good conversation with the new Prime Minister of the UK. We discussed many subjects, including the outstanding relationship we have had with the UK. I mean, that's one thing off the list, isn't it? Starting to get on with this unpredictable American president. It's a really big deal.
He's used flattery, I'm sure, because that seems to be the best weapon.
What great football tournament you've hosted.
Yeah, you know all that, and you must come and... Well, he's probably...
Come and visit Manchester.
You would have thought he's thinking, Andy Burnham's thinking, you're an orange maniac and a totally unpredictable. You've declared economic war on our country, you created Iran and chaos.
Don't ruin it now. They're trying
but that's what he'd be thinking.
But he has said things about Trump in the past, and it always amuses me when people say all of these things about President Trump, and then all of a sudden, he's a great guy.
Well, J.D. Vance was asking whether Trump was America's new Hitler. Well, America's Hitler, sorry, not new Hitler, their Hitler, and then he ends up as vice president. But yes, he's going to... Running Greater Manchester is one thing. Buses, crime commissioner, property development, tackling homelessness, a lot of issues. Very different when all of a sudden you're Prime Minister and you're pulled every way, and all of a sudden you've got foreign policy and dealing with Trump, as you mentioned. And that's, you're responsible now for the health service. You're responsible for education. You're responsible for transport everywhere. I mean, it's a huge job. Now, I think he's quite fit, he's quite young, he'll be under no illusions, but nevertheless, it'll be like being hit by a train.
Absolutely. So, first of all, you make your choices, which it seems is buses and energy. And I'm looking at the Times, actually. The Prime Minister's team has been considering several options for cutting energy bills, including scrapping 5% VAT on energy bills, a move that could save households £86 a year, and removing green levies, which could save £42 a year. Potentially, you could put that onto general taxation. So, anyway, some detail there. But you're right, you make these choices, and then, as you say, you're hit by a train, by world events, by domestic events, by things that go wrong. And then, you don't do everything you want to do. And, you're instantly thwarted. It's the nature of the beast, right?
But if people feel you're on their side and they can relate to you and you understand their problems and you're trying to come up with answers, you'll get a more sympathetic hearing. If you just looked at opinion polls, one, Labour was level with Reform, partly because Reform have fallen back with all their money worries. Another one, they were just one behind now. It's not a big Burnham bounce, but Labour may get a hearing under Burnham it couldn't get under Keir Starmer because people had made up their minds about him and didn't like him, fairly or unfairly.
And just a final thought from you, mandate or no mandate, will it clip how radical he can be, do you think, the fact that he has not and probably will not go to the country?
Well, I think he might go to the country later on in the year, depending on how his plan is set out at conference season and what have you. I mean, if he is genuinely wanting a new economic model and a new model for the UK as a whole, and I hope he is looking at the UK as a whole, then he should go to the country and he should look for a new mandate. But, I mean, he's made a lot about homelessness as his wanting to end rough sleeping, a very laudable thing and something that I think a lot of people would want to see him doing. But he didn't do it in Manchester. That's the point. He set out to do it in Manchester, but he hasn't been able to do it in Manchester.
Well, the figures showed it fell
and then it came back up again.
But his explanation for that is because he was doing it in Greater Manchester. It wasn't being done in other areas. It attracted homeless people. So we've taken them off the streets and more others were arriving for the help and he couldn't give it straight away. Now, whether that's credible, that explanation, I don't know.
Well, but it sounds from the front page
it sounds plausible, his explanation.
OK, some very, very interesting cabinet appointments tonight. The latest one, Wes Streeting in defence, replacing somebody who, was a veteran with knowledge. Ed Miliband as Foreign Secretary, despite the Trump administration's questions about him. They've been very critical of oil and gas policies, for example, and he was net zero secretary as part of his energy brief. So, honestly, we'll see how it plays out tomorrow. We'll get some photographs, no doubt, from the Cabinet, a few words from Andy Burnham, no doubt, Cabinet too, and whatever we'll hear on the cost of living. So lots more on that to come tomorrow. Just going to bring in news about Kevin Keegan, one of England's truly greatest footballers who's died at the age of 75. Let's hear more about him from Rob Harris.
Kevin Keegan showed you can be gifted as a footballer, but you need the determination and tenacity to make the most of your talents, with understated greatness, but undoubted passion carried into management. The journey to being crowned King Kev began in Doncaster, but his hometown club rejected him for being too small. Scunthorpe spotted his potential in amateur football. Bill Shankly did too, and he made the leap up to Liverpool.
I remember being at Kevin's first game at Anfield. It was absolutely unbelievable. And from that moment, almost that game onwards, he just got better and better, and he became iconic.
With a £500,000 transfer to Germany and earning the biggest individual accolade. And throughout the 1970s, the Mighty Mouse transcended football, making waves as a style icon, his perm setting trends. Becoming an unlikely pop star. The face of road safety public information adverts.
That's no way to cross the road, is it?
Nothing beats a great smell of Britain.
And promoting aftershave. He only made it to one World Cup in 1982 and played just 26 minutes.
The first time he touched the ball!
But it was at his final club he would be remembered so fondly, surprisingly joining Second Division Newcastle in 1982 and leading them to promotion. It was a surprise return when Newcastle made a daring move, putting the managerial novice in the dugout. After promotion, they barreled in on the Premier League title in 1996. But the tensions of the battle with Manchester United got the better of him.
And he's got to go to Middlesbrough and get something. And I'll tell you, honestly, I will love it if we beat them.
This all endeared him with the public and politicians. Tony Blair on his rise to power seeking a photo op with the manager of his boyhood club.
Well, I should certainly thank him for the best photo opportunity any politician's ever likely to get.
He then unexpectedly joined Fulham as Chief Operating Officer before returning to a more familiar role that earned him the biggest job of them all, England.
It is a little bit different with Keegan, you know, it's more relaxed.
And it was a defeat to Germany months later in the final game at the old Wembley where it all ended. Keegan resigning in the toilets and announcing it on Sky.
I just feel I've given it my best shot, and I don't want to go on and outstay my welcome.
And then there was 2008 and the Messiahs returned to Newcastle.
I was there the day he came in as manager. I was there the day he left, and that was a sad day for everybody. The players absolutely adored him.
But he remained a voice of football, campaigning over brain injuries and dementia. His own cancer diagnosis was revealed in January, and in May he said during a stage show it had spread. Newcastle United remembered their entertainer. The bonds he forged with supporters to become their Messiah transformed perceptions of the club. Kevin Keegan died surrounded by his family and is mourned by the football family for charming and captivating crowds on and off the pitch. Rob Harris, Sky News.
Well, I remember him playing for Liverpool and met him as Newcastle manager as well. Absolute legend, has to be said about him.
Yeah, he was King Kev, Super Kev, Mighty Mouse. Yeah, and of course, I think there'll be a race to see whether it's Liverpool or Newcastle first to have a statue to him. And he was brilliant. I mean, look, I'm a Sunderland fan. We suffered when he was at Newcastle as a player and a manager because he did so well. But he was a brilliant footballer. He's a fantastic personality.
Yeah.
And people who met him adored and loved him and said he was a nice bloke. And a friend's kid met him, and I said, "Oh, I was at the match." And Kevin Keegan said, "Were you in the Lasers End, were you?" Yes, the boy said, "Yeah, I thought I saw you. Yeah, still." And of course, making it up, but it made that
politician.
Yeah, it made that lad's life. Not even day. And 75 is no age.
No,
that's the tragedy.
Not now. And I have to say, when I look at the front page of the Sun and I see him with the long hair and then he had the poodle perm, that's how I remember.
Yeah.
Keegan. I know in later days he had the shorter white hair and what have you, but Kevin Keegan, I think in the late 70s and early 80s, he was very much of his time, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was one of those footballers that really stood out, and it's just dreadfully sad that he's passed away.
Yeah, some great tributes to him. Absolute dynamo on the football pitch, and beloved by many, has to be said. Lots more still to come in the next part of our programme.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling. War, unrest, revolutions.
It's not his country, it's ours.
They have succeeded for the first time in their country's history in removing a leader from power.
No freedom!
Sky News, the full story first. There was fighting here, but there's clearly now a lull, and they're using it to bring up more ammunition. This is a mass exodus in which Russia is hemorrhaging some of its brightest and its best. According to the local weather channel, there have been more than 2,500 lightning strikes and flash flooding, all on top of this week's lethal tornado. What stays with you most in this job is some of the people you meet. What is your worst fear about what the Russians want to do to the children?
They're just boosting demographics by stealing young people.
Would you like to take the opportunity, Mr. President, on Sky News to invite Barack Obama to come here? Mr. Trump, are you running for president? Can you confirm it?
We're going to take a look, a very serious look.
On that day, we saw your fighters killing women, killing children. Was that a mistake? Did you go too far? You couldn't control your fighters? The full force of the state is being used to crush any protest. Free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in. Another alarm. The mood here is jittery and nervous. We're seeing the world get more and more divided, and it's our job to try to make sense of it all.
The cameras are poised here, there, everywhere.
The day those present would never forget.
First question, Sky News.
Do you hate the thought of losing to him?
I hate the thought of losing to anyone.
Historic day here today.
They are pushing forward.
They dashed to the water.
Wait, what country are you from? The UK. Why don't you go back to your country?
Huge questions to be grappled with.
That is totally unprecedented.
Been quite some day.
We start with breaking news.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party.
I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi.
Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
Well, number 10 has resembled a revolving door over the past decade or so. We've lived and breathed it, have we not? As PMs come and they go, well before planned. Can Andy Burnham be different?
Let us make this the moment when Britain starts to believe again. The moment we bring back hope.
End the era of noisy performance. Tread more lightly on your lives and unite our country.
The aftermath of COVID still lingers. Putin's war in Ukraine has destabilized energy markets and supply chains the world over.
I have a bold plan to grow the economy through tax cuts and reform.
And yes, they will have an overwhelming mandate from this election to get Brexit done, and we will honour that mandate by January the 31st.
Not everybody knows this, but the full title of my party is the Conservative and Unionist Party. And that word unionist is very important to me.
I aim to form a proper and full coalition between the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats.
Yes, David Cameron also choosing to have no lectern. But, you know, they've come and they've gone. What's gone wrong with British politics?
I think people are impatient for change, and I think it probably goes along with the explosion of Brexit and social media, where kind of people now are focusing every second of every minute of every hour and every day on people, when before we used to talk about a 24/7 news cycle. It was every hour of every day. And it's so intense now, that scrutiny, the abuse, the hostility, some truth that MPs panic if their party's struggling in the polls. They think, right, let's change the leader and maybe that'll work. Hasn't always worked, as we have seen. But I think the Conservatives' mistake in 2022 was 3 prime ministers in about 3 months.
Yeah.
Labour's made its change, it's gambled, they've thrown the dice, they've gone with him. They're stuck with him now to the next election, whenever that is. That is it. You know.
And I think the electorate give their verdict on the Conservatives for changing in the way that they did. I was going to say it makes me feel old when I look back at that, but of course I'm the same age as the new Prime Minister, so I am the age that you should be.
Yeah.
So the age is 56.
You're the zeitgeist.
Exactly. And look, he has set out a hugely ambitious stage for the party. he has made some very interesting appointments. We'll now have to wait and see what policy announcements come in the wake. And, you know, nobody wishes for this country to have confidence and to grow than me. I want it to grow economically. I want to see it do well. But we need the policies to make that happen. And we're not going back to the 70s, Kevin. We need to be in a different...
Would you like to go to the 1870s? I'll settle for the 17.
It's been a day of appointments, has it not? Baroness Arlene Foster, Kevin Maguire, smashing to spend it with you. We do it all again tomorrow. Take care.
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury. I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul. Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides and it's moving this way.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today.
Congratulations, this is a huge moment.
But what happens now?